everybody. Welcome to the Route Consultant weekly webinar for the waste industry. My name is Josh Gregory. I am the Vice President of Education here at Route Consultant. If you've never heard of us before, our team ran one of the largest FedEx operations in the country and has had over a decade of experience valuing, selling, and consulting on logistics businesses. And so the goal of these webinars is to help all of you understand the opportunity in a new industry, and at least new for us in our community. And that comes with owning a business in the waste industry. So we're here for you to learn about this industry, to ask questions, and really to find the best way to accelerate your journey into the space if you do decide that it's something interesting that you want to invest your time and energy in. Now, if you're here live, we will have a Q&A at the end where you can ask any questions. If you're watching on YouTube later, feel free to send any questions to our team, and we'll make sure to get it back to you. Or you can always come to the next webinar and be here live to ask your questions. But if you are here live, make sure that you put those questions in the Q&A button at the bottom of the window, or I'll miss it. Other than that, if you're watching, like I said, if you're watching on YouTube later, feel free to send those questions directly to info@routeconsultant.com. Now, what we're going to be talking about this week is that no matter where you are in the country of operation or what industry you're in, you're going to be dealing with the reality of holidays. And when you're running a waste business, that can have huge impacts on your profitability and how you have to plan your operations. So you have to make sure to plan and prepare for them. So we have brought Tommy Turbyville back on with his decades of experience in this space, both operating and analyzing these businesses so that we can talk through all of it. So Tommy, why don't you go ahead and say hey to everybody?
Hey, everyone.
Perfect. And it is great to have you back, Tommy.
Good to be back.
So, let's kind of start this at a high level. Lots of different holidays, but just in general, do you get to decide which holidays that you take off, or how does that work? How do you structure that for a waste business?
Yeah, in the waste business, holidays are primarily determined by when the disposal sites open. So it really depends on what days they take as holidays, because that limits your availability to do much. So, almost all of them take the big six: New Year's, Memorial, July 4th, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Some may add in a few more. If it's a municipal run, you're typically going to get 8 or 9 different ones, but pretty much all of them take those 6 anyway.
Do you ever find that there are disposal sites with differing holiday schedules where you might flex between them if you have to?
Yeah, you could, if you have that luxury of having options of disposal sites. A whole lot of times you don't have a whole lot of options, but if you do have those options, there is that possibility. And then you have to weigh if you're choosing one because of a better rate. You just have to understand what that impact could be if you run on that day and that impact.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we'll get into the different holidays and how they're structured. But do you pay your drivers holiday pay?
If they are scheduled to work on the day that we actually take a holiday, yes. But I also put some parameters around that. It is, you have to work the day before and the day after.
Got it.
Put those parameters on there, because if they do that and want to extend the holiday, then it creates major issues for your business and for all your other employees as well.
Yeah, the 1-day holiday that's easy to deal with becomes a 3-day weekend or a 4-day weekend. Yeah, that makes sense. And you said you put parameters in it. Is that just a verbal discussion, or do you have it in a handbook? Like, what's the best way to handle that?
I put it in a handbook, because that way there's no question about how they get paid, what they get paid. And, if they're scheduled, and you have to be aware, you even have to address those weekends. If, it's something that you acknowledge and it falls on the weekend. And typically what you will see is Sunday holidays would be taken on a Monday. And so in that case, if the disposal site's closed, do it. If it's open, I would tell you you have less headaches if you go ahead and operate.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. And in general, I think that's just good advice for this industry, but really any is that these types of policies and these types of things that you know are going to come up and are going to be a conversation, it's much better to have it in writing as a part of a handbook that every employee has reviewed so that they can't come back and say, well, I know we talked about this, but I thought maybe I could take this extra day. And you just when you leave those areas as gray, it opens up the possibility for a lot of conversations and negotiations that are unnecessary. As long if you just set it in stone beforehand, everybody's on the same page, everybody knows what's expected of them, and it makes your business a lot more predictable around, already what is a disruption and change in the week.
Yeah, one other thing I would add to that, Josh, is not only that, but I would also put the max number of people that could take off, or if anybody could take off during a holiday week.
Yeah.
And then defining how that's determined. I mean, again, those things are important because everybody wants to take off the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah.
And you just can't, you can't do it and continue to operate. So I would always make sure I put that, and it's based on your size of operation, whether you let any or set a max number of people that could be off during that time.
Yeah, definitely. So, let's start to kind of break this up. How do you think about the different types of holidays? Are they all the same? They're all holidays, or do you kind of segment them when you're thinking about how to handle them?
Well, there are certain holidays that always fall on a Monday. Uh, and I would say those are probably easier to deal with than those that fall in the middle of the week because it seems to just disrupt the entire flow of business. So it's so not necessarily that you look at them any different, but it does have impact based on which day they are.
Okay. So, is there variance or is it the same on any line of business in waste, or is there variance across lines of business?
Yeah, it really varies by each different type of line of business based on when the holiday is and what you do. And we'll kind of kick off residential, for example. Residential service is 1 day a week. And so if the facility's closed, you don't have anywhere to put the waste, you're closed. Basically, what you do is push everything back because you can't just skip that day.
Yeah.
Um, and so, if it's a Monday holiday, your operations that week's Tuesday through Saturday. Even when it's a Wednesday holiday, it's Monday, Tuesday, then Thursday through Saturday. You basically, everything from the holiday on, for the most part, you just have to push it back a day. And I would tell you, it's very important that you communicate that well in advance, understand what that is, because, residential, you could literally have thousands of customers. And you want to make sure most of them expect that, but then it's going to be, hey, when are you going to pick up my garbage?
Yeah.
And so anything you can do to help eliminate those unnecessary phone calls by you doing proper planning is a great thing to do.
So when you say communicate it, like what's the best way to do that?
Well, and you can do it a lot of ways. One is I tell folks to have a website just because a website validates your business. I mean, what you put on there, that this isn't the topic, but I mean, putting that on there so people can go look and see. But the other is based on your invoicing system. In residential, a lot of that's quarterly. So you need to, put a note on there. Will people see it? Some will, some won't, but just putting a note on that. And if you have email addresses, come up with mass distribution of emails to be able to get that out. Those are typically the three best ways to do that.
Okay. And do you find that, how often are you finding that people, even if you're using a bunch of different lines of communication, still don't know, and like you're still getting calls the day of because they don't know when it's coming?
It still happens. you know uh Most people, even if because they're home, if it's one of the major holidays, they're home, and it's like, and then but they're still going to call the next day. Hey, when are you coming to get my garbage? The biggest one is not so much the day after or the day of. It's on holidays on Monday, and they typically get picked up on Friday, and they realize, oh no, what am I going to do with this garbage over the weekend? So it's really, it has a delay. It tends to have more of a delay. It's 2 or 3 days after the holiday when the calls start coming in.
Yeah, and you're only pushing it back one day, but do you find that how much does that affect your operations over that next week? Like, are you able to just push it back one day and everything's fine, or does it kind of cause a delayed, staggering effect over that entire week?
Well, in residential, it's really just a 1 day delay. The biggest thing you have is, again, make sure your staffing, that you manage your staffing, got your schedule out, make sure everybody's on board and understands. Because as long as your staffing is good, it's just a 1 day delay for the entire week on in residential. That's one of the easier ones to make sure you handle.
Okay. Well, then let's talk about the next line of business. So let's talk commercial next. So how does that vary, when you've got the holidays?
Yeah, so the big variation in commercial is you have multiple service schedules. And so
Mhm.
you have some customers that may be once a week, you have others that may be 5 or 6 days a week,
Yeah.
3 days a week, 2 days a week, those types of scenarios. And so you really need to have a good, robust routing system, because what you will do if it's once a week for the day of the holiday, you really want to push those back, but you want to maximize your routes. If it's somebody that's 3 days a week, chances are you may be able to get by without picking them up until the next time. But I would tell you, if you choose that, then you've got to understand there may be some waste outside the container or the dumpster. That if you want to do that, pick it up, throw it in there. But then, like on 6 day, the stuff that's every day, then you don't pick it up, and you really don't impact that. So you've got to make sure your routing system, instead of moving, let's say it's a Monday holiday, instead of moving everything from Monday to Tuesday, you have to go through and kind of look at each one by, okay, what's their service frequency? Yes, this one has to be done on Tuesday. This one we don't have, it's taken care of for the rest of the week because it's every day. But this one, it's twice a week. Yeah, I'm going to have to pick it up on Tuesday too. So it really, in that scenario, it changes your routes for every day of that week.
Mhm. And you said a good planning system. Is that usually a technology, or is it just really like a spreadsheet you're thinking through? Like, what's the best way that you typically see people handle it?
I, the people that have technology and good routing systems for technology, it goes much smoother, it's much quicker, and it creates less mistakes, because everything else really at that point turns out to be, a human interaction of some sort, and that just always increases the chances of a misstep somewhere.
Yeah, for residential, I'd imagine once you kind of build your route plan once, there's probably not a huge amount of variance over the course of a year. So, there might be, like you said, on a holiday, you might push it back a day, but typically you're probably going to be going to the same areas because everyone in those areas has trash and needs it. And it's not a lot of difference. But with commercial, you've got different service levels, different locations. So not only do you have to, is it more complex on an average day, but when you add in holidays, it's not just a 1 day shift back. There's some complexity and some things there that software can help.
Yes, most definitely.
Now, you talked about, like, let's say there's a service level agreement where you're picking up 3 times a week, and maybe you think, okay, I don't have to go this 1 day that's on a holiday. I'll just do two. Do you find that customers notice that? Can they demand you come in a third day? Like, what's the interaction there?
It again, it's part of how you communicate with them, uh, and if you explain that to them, because typically in your service agreement you're going to state, here's the holidays we take.
Yeah.
Um, And then if you do that, you don't necessarily write out the details. Oh, if you're 3 days a week, but if you just communicate that, hey, your service is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Holidays on a Monday. We won't be there on Monday or Tuesday, but if you have any extra on Wednesday, we'll throw it back in the dumpster and dump it again at no charge. So it's those types of things in that communication. Um, and just like any other customers, some are very understanding, some are not so understanding. So yeah,
Yeah.
it really
And
depends.
I'd imagine the good news too is like, with residential, if there's a holiday, they're generating more trash, but commercial, when there's a holiday, a lot of those businesses are probably closed anyway. So they may not generate as much. So there's probably also some of that to consider that can impact things.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. I mean, your fast food restaurants are going to be, things like that are always open, and so those are the ones but those typically go every day anyway.
Yeah. Right.
And so in those types of scenarios, most of them understand. They don't like it, but they understand. Hey, it's part of doing business on the holiday.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk the last one, industrial. So what do we expect there?
Well, industrial is a mix of scheduled service and on-demand service. And so, for the ones that are on demand, I mean, they're calling. If they call and say, "Hey, I need service tomorrow," and it's a holiday, you just explain to them, "Hey, tomorrow's a holiday. We'll pick you up the next day." And for those that are scheduled, if their schedule is on that day, you just push them back a day. That one's really, the easiest of all of them to get caught up and handle, because typically, if the holiday, for example, is on a Monday, by Wednesday close of business, you're typically, for the most part, caught up Wednesday or Thursday, and definitely by Friday you're caught up. Again, because of the mix of on demand, and if it's the on demand is a lot of construction. Typically, they're not working on those days as well, so it's not as big a hassle. Biggest thing is just move the schedule back one day, get those taken care of.
Okay, so industrial is pretty easy. Yeah, and like you're saying, I'd probably imagine a lot of industrial sites are also closed on holidays. And so maybe even less waste is being generated. So it just makes kind of everything a little bit simpler. Are there any of the holidays that, not because of where they take place during the week, but like Christmas, for example, like are there any of them that you should treat differently than other holidays, or that there's any other variables that they add in?
Well, it's really just the big impact you're going to see from the holidays is Christmas on residential,
Yeah.
because your volumes the week after are greatly are much higher. Uh, and the other that you'll see is even some of the summer holidays in residential. Just because, I mean, people are doing cookouts or have people over. I mean, so you have those weeks where you'll have a lot at a particular resident, but you also have vacations, and you'll go to some, and guess what? There's nothing there because they've been gone all week. um, on the other two, there's really not any significant impact, other than Thanksgiving could have some impact if you get behind on the commercial, just because, again, most retailers are open, they're going for Black Friday. And so what you will see in those retail areas is your vehicles are going to struggle just being able to get around. Of course, that's changed drastically over the years as well, with the FedEx and Amazon deliveries and everything else. There's not doesn't seem quite as crazy as it used to be, but those are really the two big ones that you'll see an impact on, and it's more volume related on the residential and just mobility related on the commercial.
Got it. So, I mean, in some ways, residential Christmas may be as close as you get to a peak season in waste, just because of the amount of additional volume that each house is producing. Does that ever affect the number of trucks you dispatch during the Christmas holidays? Like, do you ever have to send an extra truck out and change the routes just because that truck might fill up in a certain area?
Well, typically, I would say for the most part, no, you don't add routes. But what you may do if you have a spare, if a truck, typically is able to get all the waste on, you or a supervisor or something, once that truck gets full, may take them your spare as an empty truck and take it there just so they're not out there late at night once it gets dark. But typically, you don't have to add additional trucks to get caught up. You just push everything back. And on commercial, could be a little different. You could help out if you have a real dense area. Um, but again, you could add an extra route just to help get caught up. But for the most part, you push things back a day in both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume for the most part, like, if anything, this extra volume is just a cost. It's a negative. It's not like you're getting extra revenue from picking up extra houses. Everybody's still under the same agreement for you to pick up trash, but you just have increased disposal costs. So as much as you can, you're trying to minimize ever having to send out an extra truck and just trying to operate as efficiently as you can to get that volume back to the disposal center and get through the season, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about the waste industry is the routing is pretty consistent. It's
Yeah.
just on these holidays, so it's not like other services that you have these huge peak season that's going to impact where you're going to have to make sure you have additional employees or temporary employees for 2 months and have additional trucks that are just going to sit around. Because if your routing's done well, again, most Mondays are the same, most Tuesdays are the same. So that's one of the huge advantages of the waste industry when it comes to logistics.
Yeah, completely agree. So just as a last kind of point or question here, we know the federal holidays, but are there any regional or seasonal type events that can affect your business like a holiday?
Well, I would say just from a seasonality standpoint, we've talked about what the seasonality is in the commercial and in the residential. There's definitely seasonality in the industrial and construction side just because it's so weather related. So, in the cold winter months, there's just not as much construction going on outside generating the waste. And so you will see that. So you may have additional trucks and a lot of extra service on those during the summer months. The other thing you have to be aware of is service as far as seasonality is service in high visitation areas or coastal areas or those types of things in those summer months, and it's just again, it's the logistics, how you get around, where in December on the coast in the panhandle of Florida you don't have any trouble getting around at all. But you go down there, between mid-May and Labor Day, you're going to be stuck in traffic. So, those types of things do impact, but it's more just the being able to get around that everybody in the logistics business has that you have in those areas. The other thing you want to be aware of is in the commercial side is any festivals or anything like that go on where they close down roads for a period of time. I know, when we're recording this, the thing on the news here in Middle Tennessee is the CMA Fest, and
Yeah.
all the roads closed down downtown. Well, typically, you're servicing those, early morning as it is, but if they're closed down, that's going to create an issue and could create some calls. So those types of things you just need to be aware of. Know, the festivals and things of that sort that could have road closures for that purpose.
Yeah, that's a great call. Like, you just need to be plugged into your community and kind of understand what's going on, because those kinds of things are a surprise and they are not usually a welcome one.
Right.
Yeah, CMA Fest, even if the roads aren't closed in some of those areas, you'd be shocked how many people are still out at 2 a.m. Or up at 6. So downtown Nashville. So I mean, yeah, there's lots of things like that I think are great call outs. Just beyond holidays, there are things that you need to be aware of tied to weather or tied to events in your area that can have just as big of an impact, and you have to plan for it in a lot of the same ways and think through how you communicate that to your customers, What kind of conversations can you have about delaying it if you have to, and then just preparing your drivers for what they're headed into.
Yeah, very true.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's what we wanted to cover today. So, Tommy, that was fantastic. Just a reminder for everybody who's on or watching later, our next happy hour where we're traveling is actually June 27th. We'll be up in Salt Lake City. So if you're in that neck of the woods. Also, if you are still trying to decide if this is the right space for you, we have what's called a new investor summit that is designed to teach you as much as we can in a digital course, then bring you in person for a workshop in Nashville. And the next one of those is actually at the end of June as well. And we actually have a sale through this Sunday, which is what, June 9th, where it's about 60% off for the next few days. So that is your opportunity. If you haven't done one of these, we have a quick sale going on. And the last event, just as a quick reminder, we do have our giant contractor expo that we have for the logistics industry as a whole. It's the first week of August, the 2nd through 4th in Dallas, Texas. So whether you're interested in this space or any space that we've talked about here, it's a place for you where there will be free food, free drinks, free content to learn about this space and others, meet vendors, meet contractors, meet Tommy, meet our team. And so if that is something you're interested in, you can go to our website and register directly, or feel free to reach out to us to ask questions at info@routeconsultant.com, or you can call us directly. Other than that, Tommy, thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for watching today, and we will see you all next week.